Witam ponownie w strefie obrony. Naszym gościem jest wciąż generał major Yacov Bengo, oficer w stanie rezerwy sił obronnych Izraela. Panie generale, witam ponownie w naszym studiu. Panie generale, wojna w strefie Gazy, walki w strefie Gazy trwają już ponad rok. W tym czasie również wydarzyło się wiele innych wydarzeń zagrażających bezpieczeństwu Izraela, a także, jeżeli można użyć takiego słowa, otworzyły się fronty. Najpierw jednak nowe fronty. Najpierw jednak porozmawiajmy o samej Gazie. Jakie główne wnioski po ponad roku trwania walk w tej strefie można wyciągnąć? Mam na myśli przede wszystkim dwa aspekty: taktykę i technologię.
I would start just to show the size of Israel, because usually when you saw us on the media, everybody thinks that we are a superpower. So Israel, and it's important in geographic matter, is a very small country. Like the length of it is 470 kilometers, and what we call the narrow shoulders of the country from the eastern border to the Mediterranean Sea is only 60 kilometers. So it's a very, very small country. On the left side, we see the size of Gaza Strip, which is also a very condensed place. It's a 41 kilometers length, and I would say between 10 to 14 or 15 kilometers width. The importance of those elements is also the condense of the population. So we're talking about, in the Gaza Strip, about 2 million people, and of course the state of Israel itself is about 10 million people, roughly. So when we talk about the sizes and the condense of the problem, we can understand where things are here. And when you talk about technology-wise, and we'll talk about the other things differently, we understand that the technology needs to work in a very condensed places. And precision is very, very important. So you have to pick up what you want to attack, when do you want to attack it, and you have to be very precise, because you want to act by the law of engagement. And that means that the development of intelligence and communication in those areas, the elements that are working together will not interfere with each other. It's a very hard technology problem that you need to solve. The second is that what we see is the counter-drone warfare that we see here, over here, that comes a lot, and also with it the counter-missile defense system that needs to be here, because at the beginning of the war we had here about 200 missile launches every day against the state of Israel, and we see how it's close to the main cities over here, to Tel Aviv or Beersheba or Jerusalem. And so the ability to do counter-drone fare and doing national air defense in this small size was very hard and demanded big changes of the IDF and from the national level during the warfare itself, in order to have the elements of the state keep on working, meaning the communication, the critical infrastructures, and everything else needs to be worked. The third thing tactically that we failed, and we have to admit that we failed, was to defend the border itself. And in that manner, I would say in tactical level, but I also think it's strategic level, I think the way that we relate to border is wrong. We look at it as, for example, border defense or border control, but basically we need to change the mind into border warfare, because borders, they have their own way of thinking. And the success of Hamas in the first 3 days was astonishing. Of course, unfortunately for Israel and our society, and we lost a lot of people in the beginning of the war. But also when I look to Ukraine, I saw the first fight of the Russian Federation into Ukraine was a big success, because we tend to think on borders that will have time to protect them. that will see everything and will be able to mobilize the capabilities of the armies, and it's very hard. So we need to change that way of thinking. So in that manner, I would say the biggest things that you ask about is the border warfare, is the counter of drones and missile defense in that manner. And tactically, well, I'm sure you'll ask a couple more questions and we'll elaborate on that here.
Wojna w strefie Gazy jest przykładem typowej walki z przeciwnikiem asymetrycznym. Bardzo dużo mówi się na temat konfliktów asymetrycznych, na temat asymetrycznej walki. Chciałbym zapytać pana generała, no już po roku trwania walk w strefie Gazy, w jaki sposób ewoluowały metody, taktyki, a także technologie wykorzystywane do walki z przeciwnikiem asymetrycznym?
First of all, let's examine what the word asymmetric means. So in Gaza, when we talk asymmetric, we're talking about the forces or the organization or the military organization of Hamas and Jihad Islamic, that they organize themselves in the level of brigade and battalions, being able to conduct about 300 to 400 men that are attacking simultaneously our forces. The asymmetric part is that it comes from civilian neighborhoods. So you don't exactly, when you see it happening, you don't exactly understand, are those civilians or are those armed forces? So this distinction between enemies and civilian is very, very hard in that kind of condensed environment. So that's asymmetric number one. The asymmetric number two that they hold was the capabilities of having a lot of drones over our forces at the beginning of the war, and it was asymmetric to us because we didn't immediately updated our forces by using electronic warfare. It took us about a couple of months in order to put electronic warfare inside the battalion level in order to protect them from those drones attacks. So at the beginning, we were in, I would say, asymmetric capability versus the Hamas in the drone level that we saw. The third asymmetric that you talk about, and I hope that none of the countries that I talk with them will ever feel something like that, is that they at the beginning of the war, they abducted about 200 and more civilians from the Israeli state. So every action of offense that you do is thinking, will it cause the death of my civilians? So that was a big issue in that asymmetric level of engagement. If I'm conducting here an attack, what it will do to my civilians that the other side kidnapped. After saying that, I think the big updates that we do while we fought was understanding that we have to enter to the Gaza Strip itself with the armed forces and organize ourselves in the battlefield itself. To explain it, let's take, for example, the case of the 7th Brigade, which I had the right to command. It went into the Gaza Strip, learned how the enemy arranged there. We gave freedom to the brigade commander to think how to organize his forces. And suddenly we got the overmatch that we see today. Basically, we can move today in every place in Gaza Strip and conduct the operation that we want. And that was because we gave the brigade commanders the ability to change the forces themselves. So, for example, if we thought that the electronic warfare needs to be stationed in this place and be able to directly engage with the battalion commander, that's what he did. To do the fortification in the area that he conducts the operation, how to do it so the drones won't be attacking them, or those 300 soldiers of the enemy could conduct, freely offense against the forces. That's what he did. So in that manner, the ability to give the commanders the freedom to arrange themselves this is the main answer to the asymmetric warfare. And basically what happened is afterwards that the joint staff adopted those changes and made them the new rules. So I would say we learned from bottom up and not top down. Although the orders are top down, the learning is bottom up.
Panie generale, wspomniał Pan o tej dużej koncentracji ludności na terenie, gdzie prowadzone są walki, a także o wynikającej z tego faktu potrzebie zdolności do przeprowadzania precyzyjnych ataków, bardzo precyzyjnych uderzeń. I chciałem Pana zapytać, jak na kontekście walk prowadzonych w strefie Gazy, jak w tym kontekście wyglądają działania związane z wywiadem, z rozpoznaniem, a także z targetingiem. Mam na myśli wykorzystanie różnych środków wywiadowczych, takich jak SIGINT, ELINT, a także HUMINT, bo zapewne również przeciwnik adaptuje się do działań prowadzonych przez siły obronne Izraela, a jeżeli tak jest, to w jaki sposób przeciwnik odpowiada na działania wywiadowcze i rozpoznawcze prowadzone przez izraelskie wojsko i jak stara się przeciwdziałać?
So first of all, I would say the key capability to do those things is a very smart C42 system, which means that just like the tablet that I hold here, in the IDF, almost every platoon commander has something like this that helps him to integrate all the information that he gets into an operation. So I would say the biggest mistake is all the time that the intelligence people, they give you all the information, but as an operational person, you need to think, what would I do with it? Like, you need, what did it all mean? So the C4 system have already sophisticated algorithm in them. Some of them are machine learning, some of them are almost AI, that fuse all those information that are coming from the ELINT, from the SIGINT, and actually tells you as a commander, is this important than this, or what's happening in that certain building, or what other, and that helps you to focus your operation on the right direction, or else you're just hitting the air. The second thing that we did in order to make more information is the classic way of HUMINT. That means that when we got enemies and we seized them, then we had special teams from the intelligence branch that debriefed them. Where are you standing? How are you fighting? Where are the important places? And that again went back to the circle of operation and enhanced the operation in a focused way. That actually, because of the success, that of course made the enemy change its ways. And that question that you raise is very important because I want to emphasize it. Nobody changed the way he acts if the other opponent doesn't succeed. Why do you need to change yourself if you are successful? So what we saw, for example, from organization of 300 to 400 armed forces of the other side, of Hamas or the Jihad Islamic, suddenly they start working in smaller groups and smaller and smaller and smaller because they understood when they are concentrated that we are able to counter them and attack them. The second thing that happened is that they start to lose their uniforms. So suddenly they changed they stopped wearing uniforms and they started to be more civilians in order even to make the work of the regular soldier when he looks at a scope, is it a terrorist or is it a civilian? The third thing that we saw is the difference of the fortification of the ground itself. And suddenly from organized fortification that we of course been able to breach, we saw all the IDs, I mean all those bombs that are being spread, and we actually lost a lot of good commanders and good soldiers from it. And then we started to look from the material, where are they bringing in order to make those bombs. So suddenly we started looking after the factories of the bombs themselves in the area. So after we broke the enemy, I would say the need to keep on learning how it's evolved is being done with, first of all, the commanders, that they're saying, you know, the enemy has changed, because otherwise nobody really understands it. And then you ask the intelligence, go bring me how did he change? What does he do? Sometimes those are very small things that he did. As I said, just taking the uniforms. And those are big problems, not small problems. Sometimes those are big changes that he does, and you have to relate to it too.
Panie generale, na przestrzeni ubiegłego roku mieliśmy do czynienia z dziesiątkami, setkami ataków powietrznych wymierzonych w państwo Izrael, w tym z kilkoma bardzo dużymi atakami kombinowanymi z wykorzystaniem różnych środków napadu powietrznego. No, chciałem zapytać, jest to również pytanie, które w jakimś stopniu odnosi się także do wojny ukraińskiej, ale chciałem zapytać w kontekście Izraela. W jaki sposób i jakie zdolności muszą mieć współczesne siły zbrojne, żeby skutecznie odpierać tak masywne uderzenia powietrzne wymierzone w ich kraj?
Well, if we can see the next slide, I would at the beginning, would want to show the challenge. So this is the scheme of the challenge. So Israel, as I said, is a very small country over there with the blue stripes and the David Star in the middle. But all the red zones that we see are the places that actually shot shot missiles against Israel. So the Houthis are here in Yemen, by Bab el-Mandab. They're about 15,000 kilometers from Israel. Of course, we have Iran, which is about also 15 to 2,000 kilometers from Israel. We have Iraq area, which is about 1,000 to 800 kilometers. Then we have Syria and Lebanon. And what we see is a circle of fire that all the fire is concentrated against Israel. And we see, as you said, the elements over here that we can see. So we see, of course, the UAVs as big capabilities that are being sent from thousands of kilometers, but we also see the ballistics missiles that are being sent from all those ranges. And of course, they are all trying to synchronize it. So it's not only that you are being fired at as missiles and drones, but you see an orchestra of those elements. You see a strike of drones, and above it you see the strike of the missiles simultaneously. So for example, on the 14th of April, it was published that we had almost about 1,000 elements or threats in the sky moving towards Israel. So it wasn't just missiles, it was the combination of UAVs that are trying to handle your air defense, and you have the ballistic missiles that they are coming together. The reason for thinking that way from the enemy's side is to actually flood all your air defense effort. You flood the radars, you're trying to flood the interceptors, you're trying to flood everything that you have. And in order to be able to have something like that when you want to confront it, the biggest thing, as I said, is to look at it as a national effort and not a single point of failure. It doesn't work like that. So the first level is, of course, the surveillance that gives you the picture that you need. So what's coming, where it's coming, and how much time do I have? And in that manner, we have surveillance from space to the ground level, and of course with allies that we can trust them, in order to have a good understanding where the threats are coming from and up to the point of what threat it is. Is it a UAV? Is it a ballistic missile? Sometimes even it's important to know which kind of ballistic missiles, because how fast does it go and where do you need to effort your system. The second thing is the integration and the fusion of the surveillance capability with the interceptors capabilities. So And that's the brain, I would say, that in Israel we are very proud of. That's the brain of the computers and the people who program the computers in a very high algorithm, because a man cannot really do those calculations. Which interceptor needs to go where and which needs to go first down. And after you did that, then of course, as we said, you have to integrate the civilian effort in order to make sure that the civilian knows when to go and being in shelter and which area. The third one, as we mentioned before, but it's worth mentioning it again, the defense also includes offense. It's not just, having it over me. So the surveillance also allows me to attack or preemptive or preventing the enemy from attacking. So basically, we are trying that every rocket or every UAV that is being sent to reach its source and attack it back. So it won't launch again, or it won't be able to do the things that they did from that area itself. So that means that you are trying to hit the headquarters of the enemies, that from there he runs the fire strikes. You're trying even to strike the platforms that he fires from, like the trucks themselves, the launchers. So I would say, but it all begins from very good surveillance and a very good intelligence that you can do the evaluation how to defend yourself.
Panie generale, ostatnie pytanie w tym odcinku. Będzie ono dotyczyło obrony cywilnej, ponieważ izraelski system obrony cywilnej jest powszechnie znany i uznawany za jeden z najlepszych na świecie. Chciałbym pana poprosić, aby pan nieco przybliżył kształt systemu obrony cywilnej, który jest obecnie, który działa w Izraelu, a także opowiedział o tym, w jaki sposób dobrze zorganizowana obrona cywilna wpływa na wzrost zaufania pomiędzy społeczeństwem cywilnym a siłami zbrojnymi.
I would say, first of all, there is a long relationship from the establishment of the country between the civil defense and the military defense. I would say a long time ago, because we are a small country and most people did serve in the IDF itself. My father served in the IDF, I served in the IDF, my son is going to enlist. And I would say in that manner, most of Israeli knows what is the IDF. Usually in a European country, it's a little group that serves in the armed forces and not the majority. So the trust is built from the inside. That's one perspective of it. The second thing is that there are national defense drills from the school level to the national level, from the military unit to the whole joint staff. And every year we conduct annual drills. Sometimes we concentrate in certain place, maybe sometimes in the north, maybe sometime in the south. Sometimes we concentrate in a sector, for example, schools and hospitals. But there is a clockwise for every year that there is a national drill. And everybody knows that they need to be in the drill. And, the authorities summarize the drill and present it to the public. Those are all slow processes, but they are making the civilian part aware of their part of the effort itself. It's not just, a problem of somebody else, it's your problem too. The third thing I think that is very important is during wartime or big operation that the IDF is totally transparent in success and failure to the public. Like, for example, if we missed shooting an interceptor, didn't took the target and it hit and somebody killed, the IDF come immediately up front and said, it's a failure. We are investigating why. It could be a missile problem, could be the radar problem, whatever it could. And sometimes it's even a problem of the civilian itself. We told him to take a shelter and he didn't. So the transparency between the military effort and the civilian effort is very, very important, although sometimes it's conceived as one side because it's only the military who have to report to the civilians. And that's how it should be in a democratic country. And you don't get a report from the civilian part to the military what we did wrong. But that's how it works. So I think this combination of drilling together, understanding how the IDF works with its transparency, and the understanding through long time that it does save life, that's how it builds the trust between the two efforts themselves. I think if we haven't done that, we would see a lot of more casualties in the Israeli civilian side by the hundreds, because it's very hard to defend like that, just that the military does its own and the civilian does what they want. And I think educating the civilian population what will be demand of it and how they do their part in national wise is very important, and you don't need to be afraid of it. Sometimes when people come to Israel and we show them, they say, well, how will we bring it to our population? They are not used to it. And usually I'm saying, you start step by step. For example, just drilling the school. Even for not, you don't need to threaten them big threats. Let's say there could be a terrorist act. Okay, what we're doing? This is the shelters. This is how you do, just like a fire drill, and you start from there. But you have to start somewhere, and then you can have good trust between the two sides. So I just would want to add another something that is very unique to Israel, and usually people miss it. Because of our civilian are embedded in the military part as reservists, and they coming back to the civilian world, and some of them are working in the security industrial companies. Basically, they're bringing the know-how and the knowledge of the problems from bottom up. So, for example, you serve in a battalion, you serve in an air defense as a reservist, and you go work in one of the security industries of Israel. You influence on the safety of those systems because you know that really the nation is going to use them. You know that maybe your son is going to use them. You know that your friends are going to relate on those systems, rely on those systems when they are combating. So in that manner, the trust is, I would say, even goes through the systems itself, through the elements that we develop, because we know that it's our friend or one of the family or myself that consulted that industry, because we know that we have to do the best because we are fighting with it ourselves. It doesn't go anywhere else. That's all.